Hey, what's up guys, YouTube here, back with another video, and everyone's talking about this leaked ban list that has been going around as of late, and I would just like to give my 2 cents on it. So I'm going to get straight into the list, and let me know what you think of it. I think it is a pretty legitimate list, given that Satoshi Kato leaked the list, and he was correct about the past 2 ban lists. So for the ban cards, we have Gateway to 6 and Ultimate Offering. Gateway because 6 Samurais have been pretty cheap for a while. They were re-released in a structure deck, they got an XYZ. Konami were trying to push them in terms of popularity for a while. And Gateway is just one of those broken cards, which if you draw first turn, you're pretty much going to win the game. So I think it needed to be banned for a while. Specifically since also they're bringing Shi En back to 2 and Shi En Smoke Signal back to 3, which I will talk about in a moment. Next card we have is Ultimate Offering. And while gadgets are popular in the OCG, they aren't particularly popular here. Nevertheless, Ultimate Offering is one of those cards that has been around since the beginning of the game, since the Yugi starter deck in fact, and that people have always been able to abuse in some form or fashion. So the likes of Billy Break use it in Mermails with Sea Divas, which incidentally is going to 1. And other decks, of course, gadgets use it as well. So I think a card that's been so powerful and that was ruled the way it was, and that you could use it as many times as you wanted per turn, because text was a bit ambiguous back in the old days of Yu-Gi-Oh!, that I think it needed to be banned. And, you know, cards don't stay in the ban list forever. Konami have always said that, and this is certainly the case for Goyo Guardian. So I definitely expect it to come off the ban list in the next 3 years or so, but certainly not for another 4 or 5 lists. So I would say I would bid adieu to Ultimate Offering. As for the limited cards, we have Rescue Rabbit first of all. This is going to be paired with Tour Guide from the Underworld, which is also going to 1. The issue with Rescue Rabbit has always been that it is a +1 and it is a 1 card XYZ. However, if you get rid of the rabbit as an issue, never mind the fact that 2 out of the top 3 decks in the OCG only run 3 vanilla monsters, you'll pretty much get rid of the rabbit deck, period, or the rabbit engine. So Tour Guide usually goes into Levier, which goes into the rabbit, but the problem is that if you go rabbit first turn, which is extremely unlikely to happen if you only have 1 rabbit in the deck, and also you won't be able to go into Tour Guide and sit on a Sangan to search up the rabbit, because you're relying on the fact that you have another rabbit in the deck that you can just draw into anyway. So if you do that first turn, the rabbit is gone. He's pretty much gone for a while. Unless you can go into another rank 3, you're not going to be able to use him for a while. And I think that's fair. I think rabbit will still be teched in decks, although I just don't think he'll be nearly as useful. Sea Diva to 1, I think doesn't really hurt Mermails all that much, and if it's the only hit that the deck takes, I'm not going to be that unhappy about it. I'm going to be really happy about it actually, because we can just compensate by adding other Atlantean monsters. I always wanted to try out an attack squad in my deck, for example, a 3rd heavy infantry, and perhaps even another salvage. So I'll have to see what happens there. Wind-Up Factory to 1, the first hit that Wind-Ups take, also including Tour Guide from the Underworld, of course. Just to reduce the consistency of the deck. It doesn't necessarily kill the deck, because Konami don't like to kill decks that they love. Drag Down into the Grave. You know, decent hit for Dark Worlds. I think the card is kind of stupid anyway, because I hate it when people use it against me on Dueling Network. Just the fact that you can look at your opponent's hand, and Dark Worlds are always going to plus off of it. They are only ever going to give you a choice whereby they plus. So that's why the card is a little bit silly. Solemn Warning is the only one I don't get on this list. On the entire list, actually. Because, you know, it has a hefty cost, and it is somewhat balanced in that regard. The fact that it can negate a summon isn't really that big a deal in today's game. It never really turns the tide. It doesn't really make a difference. In a lot of deals, people always ran it at 2, and the opponent will more likely try and bait it out, so I don't really understand that, to be honest with you. Finally, Goyo Guardian. This card is broke. He's easily one of my favourite sinkers in the game, Scrap Dragon being my favourite. Goyo Guardian would probably be a close second. So all I'm going to say about him is he's stupid, he's a stupid card, and if you can get your hands on them, I would definitely try and get your hands on them now. If you already have one, I would hold on to it, or if you don't intend to use Goyo in the next format, to sell it. Because you'll definitely make more money than you got from the tin edition of the card, which was only worth like $2, and now it's going to be worth like $30. So good for you if you can sell it off. But anyway, moving on to the semi-limited list, we have Chaos Sorcerer, Wind-Up Magician, Plaguespreader Zombie, Lonefire Blossom, MST, Fire Formation Tenki, Book of Moon, and Shi En. So as for Chaos Sorcerer, it gives a nice boost to Chaos Dragons and to Agents, respectively. There's not really much else to say about it. With BLS still on the board, you know, the likes of Chaos Dragons are going to be pretty ridiculous. Wind-Up Magician at 2, this is again just to reduce the consistency of the deck, but you have to remember, of course, that they still have the Magician Shark play, because they still have 2 Magicians and 3 Sharks. They only have 1 factory, so they won't be able to search up the combo nearly as often. And of course, Tour Guide from the Underworld is at 1 as well, which will affect the deck quite severely for their Tour Guide and Shark play. Nevertheless, Wind-Ups are still going to be very much alive. Tier 1.5, I would say. Plaguespreader Zombie. I like this guy. I called it on my own list, actually. I always thought that Plaguespreader was a lot better than people gave him credit for. Just one of those tuners that can just keep coming back, and being at 2 will be a nice tech for Chaos Dragon players. They'll be able to synchro summon a lot more often. And it will open up plays with Goyo Guardian, in fact, if they have a Lilat in the field and a Plaguespreader in grave. So, pretty interesting to think about that. Next of all, we have Lonefire Blossom. Plant Synchro, or Tengu plants, Tengu Doppel plants, or whatever you want to call them. That was the deck of old that everyone used to run, including myself. I just love plants. In fact, I ran plants from the very beginning. As soon as I could find any kind of plant deck that was halfway decent, and as soon as I saw Lonefire Blossom, I was just like, my god, this card is broke. So I'd obviously try it out. But Lonefire Blossom at 2 means that you'll be able to do the Monster Reborn Lonefire Blossom combination, which you can get a first turn shooting Star Dragon. I used to do that so much, it was ridiculous. So I love, those types of combos in Yu-Gi-Oh! And obviously it's a lot easier to handle shooting Star Dragon nowadays. So Lonefire Blossom to 2, I welcome it. Next of all, we have MST to 2. Don't really understand this choice, but I guess because MST is just one of those generic spell and trap removal cards, and there was no reason to run any other ones. You had Dust Tornado, which wasn't nearly as good, because you had to set it first. You had the likes of Twister for face-ups, and a bunch of others like Night Beam, and things like that, and people never really saw a reason why, not to run just 3 MSTs. But putting MST at 2, and perhaps even eventually putting it back at 1 again, which is where it belonged, in my opinion, originally, might encourage people to run different forms of spell and trap removal, which cater towards the individual situation, which makes a lot more sense than just running a generic one that can just blow up everything. But anyway, Fire Formation Tenki to 2, because it is pretty much a Rhoda for Beast Warriors. And I was expecting this card to be hit, but I didn't want to put it on my list because I thought that in the TCG, the cards had just come out. I didn't really expect that it to be hit that early. But of course, it's an OCG ban list, so what are you going to do about it? Next of all, we have Book of Moon to 2. This was on my list as well. I think because we just need to open up the game. We need to enable people to stop XYZ and synchro plays a lot more often than they used to be able to. When Book of Moon was at 3, it was crazy. It was awesome. You pretty much never got to synchro or never got to do anything constructive or at all. And you always had to watch out for Book of Moon. Whereas Book of Moon at 1, it was just that occasional tech in various decks. And you didn't really see it all that often. But putting it back to 2 would definitely encourage people to use 2 copies of it once again. Legendary 6 Samurai Shi En. This goes alongside Shi En Smoke Signal going to 3. And of course Gateway getting banned. So I can definitely see 6 Samurais making a push again, but going to perhaps tier 1.5 as I said. And finally we have the no longer on this category. First of all, we have Blackwing Kalut the Moonshadow. Good boost for Blackwings, not really much else to say about it. Lumina Lightsworn Summoner. This could be a hint at the potential rank 3 XYZ monster that will be coming out in Judgment of the Light. More support for Lightsworns, or perhaps even a tuner for Lightsworns to enable them to go into a synchro monster, such as Goyo Guardian, for example. Tsukiyomi to 3. This is basically Konami saying they don't give a shit about Tsukiyomi anymore because nobody really used it last format. It didn't really break any particular deck. And so there wasn't really any reason to keep it at 1. Or even to keep it to put it to 2. Just put it to 3 and be done with it so you never have to look at it again. That's pretty much the way I think of it. Scapegoat to 3, I don't know, you look at Phantom Beastcraft coming out and they, revolve around tokens and such. But you also look at stall decks that weren't really doing much in the game, and so there wasn't any reason to keep the likes of Scapegoat, away. Also, it might be a reason for people to tech in 2 Scapegoats now, just for defense. Although making synchros more live is also a reason to bring Scapegoat back to 3 because you can sync with the tokens. So, it's definitely a positive move on their part. And finally, Shi En Smoke Signal, which I discussed already. It just increases the consistency of 6 Samurai decks and overall makes 6 Samurais a more competitive deck. Okay guys, that is it for the video. Be sure to comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, let me know what you think of this list. Do you think it is a legitimate list? Even though Satoshi Kato leaked it, and he was right about the previous 2 lists, we do not know for sure whether this is in fact the ban list, and whether Goyo Guardian, the troll of old, will be coming back to put in everyone's extra decks and troll people, take people's graphics, take people's whatever the hell he wants. So we'll just have to wait and see. And I will talk to you guys later. Hopefully we'll get more ban lists coming up soon. And if there are any, I'll be sure to post them up, unless they're completely trolly and stupid. But other than that, I'll be sure to post them up and have some discussions. Talk to you guys later. Peace out.